Yes! Welcome into Sportsbook. Betting Insight today, Thursday, July 7th. Paulie and Teddy. Big game breakdown is going to be the Nationals and the Mets and the Tigers and the Blue Jays deep dive. We start the NFC North preview with the Chicago Bears. Part 3 of Phil Steele. Go to sportsbookreview.com. Part 2 and Part 3 are up there. Big 12, Big 10, ACC, and Pac-12. Great information. Part 4 coming up on Friday. We start with the hardcore 4. A bit of a surprise. Dwyane Wade was sick and tired of what was going on in Miami. They lowballed him, and he went to Chicago. For the first time in his career, he'll be the highest paid player on his own team. What do you think of the move, Teddy, for the Bulls?
I mean, Chicago wasn't even a playoff team last year, were they?
No.
Exactly. So now you're saying, okay, you lose Derrick Rose, you lose Pau Gasol, you bring in an aging Dwyane Wade, and you pay him a bunch of money. Are they a playoff? I mean, a playoff team, yeah, maybe. A championship contender, absolutely not. You know, from all the moves that have been made in the East, it's still Cleveland and everybody else, and that hasn't changed one iota so far here in free agency.
How close is Boston with the acquisition of Horford?
I rank them number 2.
So do I.
Yeah, I mean, Toronto played about as, everything broke about as right as could break for Toronto last year. And they set a franchise record for wins. That had a lot to do with the fact that there were very few elite teams in the East. Namely, during the regular season, there were none. Cleveland really kind of got it together like the last month of the regular season into the postseason. But there weren't a lot of elite teams, which allowed Toronto, who was good, to look like they were very good. But I don't think it's even close. I think that the Celtics are clearly, on paper, the better team than the Raptors going into 2016, 2017. And I will have Boston ranked number 2 in the East in my power ratings.
In today's game of pace and space, the Bulls have a ton of guys who can't shoot. Wade and Rondo last year combined to make 69 threes. Curry made 71 in the first 14 games of the season. So let's see if that's going to work. Boy, Freddie Hoiberg didn't sign up for this. In any event, here's a prediction. This opened things up for Westbrook. That could be his destination. Can Riley bring Westbrook to South Beach next year? And if hopefully you get a healthy Bosh and you have Whiteside, and who knows, maybe you can get Blake Griffin to join him as well.
I mean, Miami without the loss of Luol Deng doesn't matter all that much. The Wade matters as the face of the franchise. He's been in Miami obviously since his rookie season, and a locker room leader for the Heat, and a guy who willed them to alignment. They won 48 games. They were the number 3 seed in the East last year. I don't. You say, well, what's Westbrook going to do? Nobody knows what Westbrook's going to do. You don't know. I don't know. This is what I know. He's probably going to start the season in Oklahoma City, and depending on how the Thunder do over the first half of the campaign, he may or may not get traded.
Yeah.
But to say, well, now he can go to Miami. All the reports that I heard from the Westbrook camp supposedly was that he was interested in going to the Lakers. He wanted to go to L.A. and, where the stars shine the brightest, where he went to college, et cetera, et cetera. But what do you or I really know about that, Paulie? Nothing. Does Westbrook know where he's going to go next year? No. So how could we possibly know?
Well, we're in the opinions business, so we got to have opinions.
But that's just opinion. I don't mind giving an opinion when it's actually based on something. When it's opinion that's based on pure speculation, like, I think Wade will go to Miami. I think he'll go here. I should say Westbrook. Nobody knows. It's like,
will he leave? Will he leave? Yes.
Yes.
Where does he want to go? Big market. Kind of narrows it down. And Riley
doesn't narrow it down at all because there's so much salary cap space in the NBA right now. That's why all these deals look insane to us. You're like Mozgov. We were mocking him on yesterday's Sportsbit. $64 million for Timothy Mozgov. Well, yeah, because the salary cap just exploded. It's going to explode again next summer in a real way. So while the numbers sound crazy as we're throwing them around, the teams that are signing these deals still have room. A lot of squads. The Cavs don't have room, but there are a ton of teams in the NBA with plenty of cap room still this offseason, let alone what they're going to do next year.
Bad beats and bad bets. The books, after they had a good run yesterday, they got thumped. Phillies, 30-cent move, won. Mets, 70-cent move, they won. The Nats were a 50-cent move. Winners as well. Tough one for the books.
Yeah, and that was all early start games, too. Phillies minus 150 to minus 180. Mets minus 170 to minus 240. Nats minus 170 to minus 220. That's not a good start to the day for the books. I guess the good news you can say is that at least it was the early games, and not, and then generally the money comes as the day progresses more and more. So it could have been worse for the books, but certainly we talked yesterday about what a bad, bad, bad Tuesday it was for a lot of sports books.
Bad bet again. The Cubs, $1.85. The pen blows up.
Yeah, well, I mean, Trevor Cahill this time. I mean, the Cubs, again, we talked about it on yesterday's sports bit, Paulie.
Yeah.
The Cubs are playing bad baseball right now. They're laying $1.85 on a day where they were going bullpen by committee for the starter, and they're going up against Anthony DeSclafani, Disco. You got to love this guy for Cincinnati. He has 6 starts. He's only given up 9 earned runs. The Reds are 4-2 in those games. They've cashed plus 180 and plus 165 tickets with Disco on the hill. What do you say right now? Cincinnati's bullpen was the one that got the job done against the fading Cubs.
Yeah, Cubs stink right now. No doubt about it. There was money on the Rays. They lose again. 3-18 in their last 21.
I mean, it was only a little bit of money this time. It wasn't like the steam that we saw yesterday. But yeah, they were still a $1.50 favorite. They're on a 3-18 run. Well, they was 3-17 going into the game, and they were a $1.50 favorite. They made Jared Weaver look good. The Angels all of a sudden are getting right playing Tampa Bay. And when the Angels are getting right playing things have gone way south. Weaver, of course, he entered that game with a 5.51 ERA, and he only allowed 1 run. This is the second time all season that he's had more strikeouts than hits allowed.
Up next, big game breakdown. Huge series, Nats and the Mets. It's coming up on Sportsbit. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Hi everyone, tune into the MLB Odds Couple show for today, Thursday, July 7th. It's a small card, but Mike Brenner and I are both coming off a winning day. I've actually been pretty hot for a while now, and there's a bunch of plays that I'm really liking, including one team total over. I could tell you what that is right now, so you wouldn't have to watch the show, but I'm not gonna.
That's right, getting the best of both worlds with Paulie and Teddy, and me and Pistol Pete.
You can come to the show and find out my big team total play for today, Thursday, July 7th.
Don't miss it.
Back on Sportsbit, time for big game breakdown as always. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Nationals and the Mets. Mets at home. It's Giolito against Cologne. Mets $1.15, 7.5 the total. The Nationals dumped the Mets 20-6 in the sweep at home last week. So instead of continuing and building on that momentum, they struggled, and rain halted the debut for Giolito against the Mets after 4 shutout innings. So now we really get to watch him go to work here.
Yeah, Giolito, 6'4", 255. No, that's not his record and his ERA. That's his size. This guy is a big, big man. He only turns 22 next week. He was the number 16 overall pick in the 2012 draft, and a guy who has not thrown a single pitch at AAA, but obviously Washington very, very high on this prospect. His average fastball, as you mentioned, he got pulled after 4 innings because of rain, but the average fastball, 93.7 miles per hour. The guy's got nasty heat, Paulie. And, of course, the Nats got one sign they've been looking for all season yesterday. Ryan Zimmerman, 2 for 3 with a home run and 2 RBIs.
Yeah.
He's still sitting on 221 for the season, but at least it's a step in the right direction.
So we get that great Mets rotation, and they start this huge series. Is it a good thing that they have the cagey veteran Cologne going?
You can't argue what Cologne's done this year. 7-4, 2.87. His last 7 starts, he's allowed 2 runs or less in all of them. The other measures don't like him. You look at the fielding independent pitching, the FIP, he's 3.79. The adjusted fielding independent pitching, he's 4.10. The Sierra, 4.37. So all the advanced metric stats say that Bartolo Colon is primed for regression. Of course, the X factor might be the 82.5% left on base. That's far above the MLB norm of 72.8%, and his career number, 73.2%. So he's definitely been working his way out of jams more effectively so far this season, which, there's luck factor involved in that, but there's also wily, cagey veteran factor involved in that. And Bartolo Colon has certainly lived up to that this season.
Well, the Mets are finally getting healthy on offense, and no one had a better week than Flores. His last 4 games, 9-17, 4 home runs, and 7 RBIs. If the Mets get that kind of production, the offense continues to hit like they did against the Cubs, they're going to win a lot of games, and they had a good series against the Marlins as well. Game number 2, Tigers and the Blue Jays. It's Verlander against Hutchinson. Blue Jays $1.29.5 the total. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Is the buzz finally going away from Verlander for good? The last 3 seasons, Teddy, 28 and 26 with an ERA over 4.
Yeah, I mean, that's who he is right now. The days of Justin Verlander being an ace ended a long time ago. Right now he's an adequate, third or fourth starter for a mediocre Tigers team, who did get off the schneid against Cleveland.
Finally,
yesterday.
yeah.
But we look at the problem spot. So far this season, he's 8-6 with a 4.11 ERA. If you want to say what's the issue, it's fly balls. The ground ball rate of 35.2% is the second worst of his career. Last year's ground ball rate, 34.6%, was the worst of his career. So what happens when you have too many fly balls? Well, the home run per fly ball rate of 11.5. That is the worst of his career. So what's happened with Verlander, he hasn't been able to keep the ball down, and the higher pitchers are getting tagged more often. He's still decent, but he's certainly not an elite starter. I don't know that he matches up particularly well against this potent Toronto lineup.
Okay, now this is fascinating. What do we do and what do we make of Drew Hutchinson, who was demoted to AAA even after going 13-5? He was great at home, but had a bad ERA, and he was terrible. He was great at home, but he was awful on the road. He only gets a start because Estrada's on the DL.
Well, the crazy thing is that Hutchinson, again, this guy won 13 games in the big leagues last year. Went 13-5. And he started the year at AAA. And he might have stayed at AAA if it wasn't for the Blue Jays going to the DL and being forced to call somebody up. But you can say that he got away with a 13-5 record last year. The guy had a 5.57 ERA.
Yeah.
And of course, we talked a little bit about Aaron Sanchez on Sportsbook. I believe it was early in the week. We were saying, is this guy, they were talking that he might go to the bullpen, might be move into the closer's role. Well, they want him on an innings limit this season. So if Hutchinson shows that he can handle the load, then all of a sudden now we really might see Sanchez go to the bullpen and might move into that closer's role despite having such a strong first half.
And Team 4 makes it easier for Hutchinson. During the 5-0 run, they've outscored their opponents by 30-plus runs. So the Bats have come alive. Up next, back to the NFL. NFC North preview starts with the Chicago Bears and the play of the day on Sportsbit. Betting Insight today.
Always on the go? Bet365 has one of the top mobile platforms in today's market. Sign up today and don't let your busy life keep you out of the game.
Back on Sportsbit, time for the deep dive. Reminder, Phil Steele, Part 2 and Part 3 up at sportsbookreview.com. NFC North today, the Bears, win total is 7. Split line, many 7.5s out there, so shop around. Last year, 6-10 straight up, 8-8 ATS and 8-8 over-under. Mainstream stats, 21st in total offense, 14th in total defense, minus 0.3 yards per play, that was tied for 22nd, and minus 4 turnover differential, tied for 19th, Teddy.
Yeah, and let me start with this, because it's very important to note when we talk about a split line for a season win bet, for God's sakes, if you like the over, bet an over 7s. You can push if they land on 7. It's okay to lay extra juice. The standard rule of thumb for middle-of-the-pack teams, we're not talking about at the very top or at the very bottom, but any team line, say, between 6.5 and 10 wins, or 6.5 and 9.5 wins, your standard rule of thumb is half a win is worth about 50 cents worth of juice. So betting 7 over minus 150 is the moral equivalent of betting 7.5 even money. So when you're making a season-long bet, for God's sakes, find that 7 if you like the over, find the 7.5 if you like the under, and using that conversion chart of about 50 cents worth of juice, you can shop around and clearly see what the best number is. Now let's start with some off-season moves. Or heck, I got to throw back to you, Paul. I'm already out of breath.
All right. They get Jarrell Freeman, Danny Trevathan, three down linebackers who will aid a Bears defense that was 31st in DVOA against the run and 30th in the league in DVOA against passes to tight ends. First-round pick, Leonard Floyd from Georgia. Third pick, Jonathan Bullard from Florida. Edge pass rushers. The front 7 much better on paper than it was last year. Now the secondary, no, mercy. Only 8 interceptions last year. The entire team only forced 17 turnovers.
Yeah, no notable talent upgrades in the secondary, but when you're talking about big upgrade on the linebacking core, big upgrade with the pass rush, you know what happens? Your secondary somehow finds a way to get better. And these were strong moves from Chicago. And again, you're talking about coaches with a good defensive track record and good defensive minds. Vic Fangio is the defensive coordinator, and obviously John Fox is the head coach who used to be a defensive coordinator. So when you look at the talent, legitimate talent upgrade for Chicago on that side of the football, you have to be happy with the Bears' defense. Offensively, you look at the offensive line, they bring in Bobby Massey from Arizona. And Massey's, he's a solid tackle. But the best advantage for having Massey on the roster is you might be able to push Kyle Long back inside to the guard position. He looked much better at guard in his first 2 years in the league than he did at tackle last year. And the offensive line has decent depth everywhere but left tackle. Still very much an issue. Charles Leno, the only option right now. And frankly, Paulie, he's not a real good one protecting Jay Cutler's blind side.
Yeah, here's your guy, Cutler, off a career best 92.3 passer rating and a career best touchdown to interception ratio, despite losing 4 top wide receivers and a tight end for extended stretches last year. Gase was his OC. He goes to Miami. He's the new head coach. And the quarterback coach now becomes the OC this season. He hasn't played a full year since 2009. They did sign Hoyer and Connor Shaw to back him up if he goes down, which, again, he hasn't played a full season since 2009.
Yeah, that being said, he played 15 games last year, 15 games the year before. Cutler's been pretty tough, considering the beating that he's taken throughout the course of his career. But let's talk about Dowell Loggains, the new offense coordinator. He was Cutler's QB coach last year. He was the offense coordinator in Tennessee in 2012 and 2013. So we're not talking about a guy who's a virgin in the play calling role. Even though Gase is gone, and Gase was a pretty creative offensive mind, I'm not anticipating a significant drop-off in terms of play calling for Chicago right here. And, of course, with Brian Hoyer, Hoyer is a decent backup quarterback. He may not be a good NFL starter. I'd say that if you're listing backups in the league, he's got to be top 5, and that's certainly a good thing for Chicago. Matt Forte gone. And what do we think of that, Paulie? We could care less. Smart not to pay him. Plenty of options at running back for the.
You are anti-running back big time. At least they have a decent backup with Hoyer. That's certainly a big upgrade over what they've had the past few years. Kevin White, the wide receiver out of West Virginia, didn't play it down as a rookie. Shin surgery. Alshon Jeffrey, soft tissue question mark. Zach Miller, Eddie Royal, all coming off serious injuries. How about the schedule?
Well, last year it was tied, again, based on my numbers, tied for the toughest schedule in the NFL. 2016, there's a huge drop-off compared to where it was last year, down to below the league average. That being said, the mainstream numbers say that the Bears play the second easiest schedule in the entire NFL, looking at last year's one-loss record, not this year's win totals. And my numbers don't show that, not even close. So even though their schedule is much weaker than it was a season ago, Paulie, the numbers and the mainstream numbers show that it's even weaker than that. So from a value standpoint, I'm not sure that you're going to get the proper value for Chicago, despite the fact that their schedule much easier than it was a year ago. NFC North plays the AFC South and the NFC East this year, and the 2 extra games for the Bears come against San Francisco and Tampa Bay, not the toughest of opponents.
Well, the networks don't expect a playoff run. After Halloween, every game after Halloween is a 1 p.m. East Coast kickoff. How about that?
Yeah, again, the networks like to hype playoff teams or the teams they think they're going to be in the playoffs, and the Bears not going to be one of those teams this year. But interesting schedule. They only have 1 set of back-to-back roadies all year. Only back-to-back at home twice. So the first 10 weeks it goes road game, home game, road game, home game, road game, home game. And, of course, the first 4 roadies are all tough. At Houston, at Dallas, at Green Bay, at Indy, all lined as winning teams this year. But let's not forget, this team, when you talk about a home field advantage, they went 1-7 at Soldier Field last year. They went 2-6 at Soldier Field in 2014. Between it, 5-11 against the spread in those 16 home games. Meanwhile, 5-3 straight up on the road last year, and 3-5, a better record on the road than at home in each of the last 2 seasons for Chicago. So even with that tough initial road slate, maybe they find a way to steal 1 or 2 of those games. Bears over. You gotta like I like the smell of this team right now, and I hate to say that on a Jay Cutler quarterback team. He's your boy, Teddy. But first lean has got to be Chicago over 7.
Yeah. All that one playoff win, right? I think that's it. One playoff win in his career. My God, and a ton of money there. All right, money time. Play of the day. A push yesterday in the soccer game with Portugal and Wales. Where are we going, Teddy?
Yeah, the play of the day, we've had 2 soccer unders. They both pushed.
Yes.
Let's do a game that's not going to push because it's lined on a hook. Game number 961, 962. The Detroit Tigers, the Toronto Blue Jays, over the total, 9.5 the number. Look at this. Michael Saunders, 10 hits and draws 2 walks the last 5 games. He's keyed the surge and filled in for Joey Bats. No, his career high home runs, 19 before this season. Michael Saunders has 16 already. Look for fireworks as the Tigers and Blue Jays go up and over.
A monster show tomorrow, the weekend preview. We got the UFC 200 breakdown with Adam Hill. We have previewed the Detroit Lions, bad beats, bad bets, in part 4 with Phil Steele. All that coming up on Sportsbit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.